I transmigrated into a Xianxia world, where the system demanded that I adopt the young future villain and nurture him into a truly evil antagonist. So I rescued the child fighting wild dogs for scraps in a ruined temple, took him as my disciple, and taught him the fundamentals of villainy every single day. Truly worthy of becoming a future great villain, he learned with astonishing ease, displaying extraordinary talent. Just as I was causing chaos at the Immortal Sect tournament with my fuller-trained black-hearted Lotus disciple, the system returned. I waited gleefully for its praise, but the system wailed at me. I told you to adopt the villain. How did you end up bringing the male lead here? And you've raised him to be such a scoundrel. I can't go on like this. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now, the story begins, outside the dilapidated temple. Thunder and rain raged as I crouched under the leaky eaves, staring at the flickering task prompt on the system screen. Mission: adopt the future enemy of the Immortal Sect and raise them into the ultimate villain. Can't you give me some specific information? I poked the holographic screen. Like what they look like, where they are, how old. The system replied coldly. Please explore on your own. Villain traits: dangerous, obsessive, destructive tendencies. I rolled my eyes and was about to curse again when suddenly wild dogs began barking frantically behind the temple, mixed with a child's hoarse shouts, pushing through the weeds and flying over. This was the scene that greeted me. 7 or 8 wild dogs formed a circle, their fangs dripping with saliva, while at the center stood a gaunt boy. He looked to be just over 10 years old, covered in blood, clutching half a broken wooden stick in his hand. With 2 lifeless wild dogs already lying at his feet, what chilled me most were his eyes, pitch black, icy, like daggers laced with poison. Wow, that gives off such a villainous vibe. I quickly recalled those scenes in novels where immortal masters pick up children, clearing my throat with a fist to my mouth. I casually shooed away the wild dogs and crouched down to meet his eye level. What's your name? Ha ha ha, I must look absolutely dashing right now, right? I won't believe it until I've charmed this little villain into complete idiocy. Instead of answering, he stared at me warily, his fingers stealthily reaching toward the dead dog's neck wound, where half a sharp piece of broken tile was embedded. Not bad, knowing how to kill with one strike. I nodded approvingly, grabbing him by the collar. Come with me, I'll teach you something even more interesting. The system suddenly emitted a piercing shriek. Warning, high-risk target detected. See. That's exactly right, I said, tucking the struggling boy under my arm. Dangerous, obsessive, and knows how to slit throats with broken tiles. This is precisely the little villain we've been looking for. The kid tried to escape 3 times and ambushed me 5 times. When he bit my wrist for the last time, I poured the poison into the stream right before his eyes. Within 3 breaths, the entire school of fish floated belly up. Want to learn this? I shook the medicine bottle. He finally spoke. His voice raspy like sandpaper. What's the price? A villain's mindset with multiple standards. I excitedly slapped my thigh. Call me master, and I'll teach you skills that could overturn the 3 realms. As he knelt down and kowtowed heavily, the system suddenly glitched, flickering for a long time before squeezing out a sentence. System upgrade imminent. During this period, only subconscious system prompts will be available. Host, please complete tasks diligently. I nodded perfunctorily. This damn system kept malfunctioning and working against me. My teaching would probably improve without it. That night as I examined his injuries, I discovered a seal mark over his heart, a forbidden immortal technique. I poked at the golden curse mark. Why did they seal you? The boy, now to be called Molan's disciple, lowered his eyes and lied. They say I was born with ominous energy. I didn't detect the faucet at all and burst into laughter. What a coincidence. Your master specializes in curing such false righteousness. I promptly forced him to drink a bowl of poisonous soup that strengthened spiritual veins. Starting tomorrow, our first lesson will teach you how to make ominous energy look like auspicious blessings. The subconscious system emitted faintly within the sea of consciousness. Abnormality detected. I retorted. What do you know, you dumb AI? Always going on about abnormalities this and abnormalities that. I paid no heed. Outside the window, torrential rain poured down as I embraced the future great villain. Lost in grand visions, oblivious to his hand secretly clutching the hem of my robe and the fleeting golden glint in his eyes. To properly nurture this villain, I stayed up late crafting a curriculum. 1. Marrow hour, 5 to 7 a.m., times corrosion of the Tao heart, correct interpretations of the Tao Te Ching. 2. Chen hour, 7 to 9 a.m., times aesthetics of poison elixirs, key techniques for refining crane's crown red into beauty pills. 3. Hour of the snake times precision behavior, learn to observe whether enemies are truly dead. 4. Hour of the horse times immortal banquet survival, 108 elegant ways to poison at the Peach Festival. 5. Hour of the goat times spotting the protagonist, how to recognize the main character in a crowd at first glance. 6. Hour of the monkey times social grace, treat everyone with a smile as refreshing as a breeze under the moon. 7. Hour of you, 5 to 7 p.m., times image management, requiring flowing sleeves that don't raise dust when stepping precisely. 8. Hour of Shu, 7 to 9 p.m., times expression control, eyes must achieve 3 parts mockery, 3 parts indifference, and 4 parts nonchalance. 9. Hour of High, 9 to 11 p.m., times experience summary, case analysis of failures by villains throughout history. Master, I've finished reciting the Tao Te Ching. The morning dew had yet to dissipate when Molan stood before me holding bamboo slips, his eyes as clear as mountain spring water. I nearly tumbled from my rattan chair. This brat had only received the book last night. Chapter 8 of the Tao Te Ching. The highest virtue is like water. Water benefits all things without contention. He recited fluently, his voice clear and mellow, the very image of a well-read disciple from an immortal sect. I narrowed my eyes. Explain, be kind to the virtuous and keep your word. He lowered his head slightly, offering a humble smile. It means to treat kind people with benevolence and to be true to your word. Wrong. I slammed my palm down, shattering the stone table before me. Amidst the flying debris, I snarled. The meaning is, first act kinder than saints to gain trust, then stab swiftly, accurately, and ruthlessly. The system's subconscious screamed shrilly in my mind. That's my original line. Mine, I know, but for the grand cause of educating young villains, Lousy will have to endure this slight. I pulled a handwritten copy of *, the revised Tao Te Ching for villains * from my sleeve and slapped it against his chest. Recite it again. Pay special attention to my vermilion annotations. He opened the book, his fingertip pausing beside the red characters annotating blunt the sharpness, untangle the knots. Master, what does this annotation about optimal poisoning window mean here? People only show their flaws when they let their guard down. I casually ruffled his hair with a benevolent smile. Tonight, I'll take you to the back mountain for practical training. Our target will be the immortal cranes guarding Qingyun's sect. System subconscious, I'm reporting you for tampering with ancient texts. I rolled my eyes. Shut up. You can't even provide complete prompts, yet you dare lecture me. Molan raised her head, a flicker of confusion passing through her pitch-black eyes. Who is Master talking to? Just some useless thing. I waved my hand dismissively. Come, let me teach you how to prepare medicine first. The system subconsciously grumbled. What crime did those cranes commit to deserve meeting such wicked people as you? The back mountain was shrouded in mist at midnight. Remember the key points, I whispered while crouching in the grass. First, before administering the drug, confirm the target's habits. These foolish cranes always go to drink at the spirit spring during the hour of the ox. Molan nodded earnestly, her young face filled with concentration. In the moonlight, I saw his eyelashes casting delicate shadows on his face, like those of an exquisite porcelain doll. Second, the poison must be mixed into their favorite silver-scaled fish. I pulled out a packet of powder. This is my specially crafted 7-day soul-severing powder. He suddenly raised his hand. Master, isn't that name a bit too obvious? I froze. If we call it Yang Yuan pill. He took out a small bottle from his robe and poured out several fragrant pills. I followed your instructions and made the laxative smell identical to the spirit-gathering pill. This ability to draw inferences from one example, truly worthy of being my disciple. The next morning, the entire Qingyun sect was thrown into chaos. Immortal mountain cranes suffer collective diarrhea. Impossible, they were clearly fed the vitality pills personally bestowed by the sect leader. hiding in the tree. I trembled violently from suppressed laughter when Moran suddenly tugged my sleeve. "Master, isn't the third lesson when framing someone? Do it thoroughly." Before I could answer, he'd already pinched his throat and shouted downward. I saw disciples from the Medicine Peak heading toward the crane shed yesterday. Half an hour later, the Medicine Peak elder was punished with a month of cleaning crane droppings. Molan and I exchanged wicked grins. Our scheme had succeeded. But before long, the truth came to light anyway. After the Immortal Crane incident, we became wanted by the Qingyun sect. On the bounty notice, my portrait was as ferocious as a yakshaw, while my disciple's harmless likeness was placed beside it. The headline boldly proclaimed, "Evil woman abducts innocent child. Report immediately if seen." They actually think you're the victim. I tore the notice apart in fury. "You're the one who brewed the laxative." The disciple was using illusion magic to disguise himself when he tilted his head at these words. Master taught me that the true culprit must always stand among the victims. My old heart swelled with pride, astonished by this little one's talent, and I casually taught him something even more cunning. "Next time, remember to dose yourself with poison first. Cry a bit more pitifully." Subconscious system. Is this a parenting guide or a crime manual? That night, my apprentice came to me with 12 lectures on accident scam techniques seeking clarification. Chapter 3 says the injuries must be real, but the responsibility must be fabricated. He rolled up his sleeve, revealing bruises covering his arm. "Real enough for you?" I took a closer look and nearly had a heart attack. These were all injuries from being beaten up by Qingyun sect disciples this morning. "Who did this?" I roared, drawing my sword. "The one with the mole on his left cheek." He obediently pointed the way and added, I deliberately ran into his sword. The memory stone captured everything. At the third watch of the night, we crouched in the Qingyun sect's treasury dividing the spoils, on the third day of the rainy season. Moran suddenly developed a high fever. At first, I thought it was just a common cold, so I casually tossed him a bottle of antidote pills. After all, this kid had been testing poisons with me for quite some time, and his constitution should have been immune to all toxins by now. But late at night, a muffled sound suddenly came from within the cave dwelling. When I rushed in, Moran was already curled up on the stone bed, his body burning hot like a branding iron. He was biting his lips so hard that blood trickled down the corners of his mouth, yet his hand still tightly clutched the bamboo scroll of the black-hearted cultivator's code I had given him the day before. "Idiot, can't you scream when it hurts?" I yanked open his collar, my pupils contracting violently. That golden seal was flickering wildly, devouring his spiritual energy like a ravenous beast. Even more terrifying, spiderweb-like black patterns had begun spreading around the seal, slowly gnawing at his heart meridian. Suddenly, the system's subconscious screamed, "Warning, spiritual foundation compromised, soul erosion detected, shut up. If you're useless then stop making noise." I severed my connection with it instantly, as my fingertips touched Molan's pulse. The spiritual energy I probed with was instantly shredded to pieces. This was no ordinary restriction, it was some kind of living curse. The bed suddenly shook violently as Molan arched his back sharply, spitting a mouthful of blood onto my sleeve. Master. His dilated pupils reflected my image. The code, Article 7, still reciting what I taught him at a time like this. I crushed 3 bottles of 9 Revolutions soul-returning pills directly, the medicinal liquid boiling in my palm mixed with my life-bound spirit fire, a deadly poison that would rupture meridians with just 1 drop for ordinary cultivators had now become our lifeline since the seal was devouring spiritual power. Then feed it something even more toxic, swallow it. I pinched Molan's chin and forced the medicine down his throat. The scalding liquid made his Adam's apple bob violently. He struggled instinctively, his nails digging deep bloody scratches into my arm, yet in his delirium he mumbled, "It'll poison. I won't die." I pulled open my collar to reveal identical scorch marks on my shoulder. "Back then, your master survived 3 palm strikes from the demon lord unharmed. This little poison." Before I could finish speaking, he grabbed my wrist. The high fever gave the child terrifying strength. I watched helplessly as his grip tore open my freshly scabbed wound, making it bleed again. Just as I was about to lose my temper, I saw his trembling hand reach under the pillow where he'd hidden that exquisite jade hairpin I'd casually complimented yesterday. Apology. He barely managed to squeeze out these two words before falling back into convulsions. I stood frozen in place, clutching the blood-stained jade hairpin. Outside the cave, the rain poured down in torrents. Resigned, I gathered the feverish little troublemaker into my arms. When spiritual power wasn't enough, he used vital blood essence, pouring bowl after bowl of poisoned broth until the golden light in his chest was forcibly dyed ink black. At dawn, that deadly seal finally lay dormant. For now, the first sight that met Molan's waking eyes was me using his hairpin to fasten my hair. In the morning light, color suddenly bloomed across the youth's pale face. Master, shut up. I stuffed a sugar pill into his mouth. Extra lesson today, how to make those righteous sects kneel and beg you to be their ancestor. We'll use the one who hit you as practice. The system's subconscious suddenly had a final flicker of awareness. You call this healing? I looked down at my disciple who was secretly tugging at my sleeve, his eyelashes still beaded with cold sweat. Yet his eyes shone astonishingly bright. What else? I flicked Molan's forehead with my finger. Should I teach him to return good for evil? By dawn, the seal had temporarily been suppressed. The first thing my disciple did upon waking was to pull out a small notebook from under his pillow and start writing yesterday's gains. The bitter flesh strategy works on Master. The heart seal fears scorpion tail poison. I snatched the notebook and saw the latest page read. How to make Master soft-hearted. 1. Cough softly when injured. 2. Recite her favorite lines of poetry. 3. Save up to buy that jade hairpin she's been eyeing for 3 days. Crossed out. Change to raid the sect leader's private vault next month. What's with the third item? I roared, shaking the paper violently. He blinked his eyes. You said it yourself. Stealing what you desire has more villainous flair than buying it. In the 3rd year of Molan's formal apprenticeship, the Jinsho Pavilion at the foot of the mountain acquired a new batch of white jade hairpins. I had merely glanced at them a few times longer than usual, yet that very night the storeroom was robbed. The next morning, a brocade box appeared by the pillow, containing that hairpin along with a clumsily written note. To make up for scratching Master the other day, the system's subconscious couldn't resist sarcasm, getting used to stealing things as apologies. I adjusted my hairpin before the bronze mirror, then turned and hauled over the little troublemaker who was copying the Blackheart Sutra. Have you learned how to frame someone yet? Yes, his eyes sparkled. I left behind a Medicine Peak disciple's waist token. Fool, I flicked his forehead. Leave half a token, enough for them to trace but not enough to confirm. The spring rain pattered outside the window as I chewed on the candied plum he'd secretly slipped me, thinking to myself, though this child wasn't my own by blood, his talent for squandering money truly took after me. On Moran's 12th birthday, I tossed him a section of dark iron chain, test its strength. He fiddled with it a few times and laughed. Master, is this scrap material from the immortal binding rope? Oh, you've got a good eye. I raised an eyebrow. A wandering cultivator came to the mountain's base with the genuine article tied around his waist. Before I could finish speaking, he was already gone without a trace. At dusk, he climbed through the window covered in dust, proudly presenting a gleaming golden rope. I've improved it, it whispers sweet nothings when binding someone. I gave it a try. You naughty devil Tilda, be gentle Tilda, what kind of nonsense is this? Molan was using this damn rope to tie up crabs, looking up at me with a smile. How about drunken crab for dinner? In the candlelight, bits of grass from the fight still clung to his eyelashes. I silently changed punishment to extra dishes. By the 3rd flare-up of the seal, Molan had already grown taller than me. The 16-year-old youth curled up on the bed, his white robes soaked through with cold sweat, yet still stubbornly handing me a handkerchief. Master, don't get blood on yourself. I pried his mouth open and forced the medicine down. Keep talking nonsense and I'll throw you back to that broken temple. His muffled laughter tugged at his wounds, sending him into a coughing fit so violent it seemed to tear his lungs apart. That place was demolished long ago. I turned it into a gambling den. Excellent. Even gravely ill he hasn't forgotten about making money. In the middle of the night when his fever spiked, he suddenly clung to my arm, shivering and calling out that he was cold. I struggled briefly but couldn't break free, so I let him hold on while continuing to smear deadly poison ointment over his chest with my other hand. At the break of dawn, this little demon woke up, and his first words were, "Master, your dark circles are so heavy." I promptly shoved the poisoned apple into his mouth. Extra lesson on how to play dead elegantly. On the eve of the Immortal Sect Grand Competition, Molan turned 18, I tossed him a memory stone. Final exam ruining the reputation of Qingyun Sect's top disciple. He caught the stone and suddenly knelt on one knee. Master has taught me for 10 years. May this disciple ask one question. Speak. What if you've mistaken my identity? If I'm not the person you've been searching for? As he raised his head, golden light swirled in his eyes. Would you abandon me? I kicked out with my foot. Be you black or white? The memory stone suddenly projected footage of him stealing hairpins at age 12. You're my damned disciple either way, Master. I drew the gentleman's group. When Molan returned holding the jade slip for the Qingyun Sect's grand competition, his snow-white robes billowed, the jade pendant at his waist tinkling softly, the very image of an upright and elegant young immortal. I almost didn't recognize this as the same troublemaker who just taught me how to cheat at gambling without getting struck by lightning yesterday. 10 years truly can transform a person completely. I nodded approvingly, as expected of my disciple, standing there like that. Who'd believe he's the villain? What's the grouping rule? I squinted while flipping through the jade slips. By character, he obediently explained, Gentleman's group competes in swordsmanship and moral cultivation, while Eccentric's group compares unorthodox techniques. I slammed the table and stood up. They dared to assign you to the Gentleman's group. This is outright discrimination. My disciple pressed down on my sword-drawing hand and said softly, Master, please calm your anger. This disciple actually thinks. Suddenly lowering his voice, he continued, causing mischief among saints, that's what I call real skill. Tears of relief instantly streamed down my face. This brat had finally mastered his craft. On the day of the grand competition, the streets were deserted as everyone flocked to the arena, on the high platform. An elder of the Qingyun sect was praising his disciple. This child possesses noble character and open-heartedness, truly. Before he could finish, a crisp crack echoed from the fighting stage. Everyone saw my noble and open-hearted disciple retreat in panic, while his opponent's spirit sword inexplicably snapped into 3 pieces mid-air. I didn't mean to. My disciple's eyes reddened. Senior brother Wang just said he'd give me pointers, and somehow his sword. I stifled laughter while munching melon seeds. That sword had been soaked brittle with potion last night. The opponent roared in fury. Stop pretending, it was clearly you. Enough, the presiding elder sternly interrupted. How dare anyone slander the gentleman's competition? The female cultivators below the stage were already crying heartbrokenly. Junior brother Moran is so pure-hearted, how could he possibly cheat? During the finals, my disciple's opponent was the top disciple of Qingyun sect, that sword cultivator with a mole on his left cheek. Little trash, you've gotten this far by playing pitiful. The chief sneered as he drew his sword. There's no referee to protect you in this match. The disciple bowed his head respectfully, but beneath his sleeve, his fingers flashed me a 3. This was our master-disciple code. Within 3 breaths, we'd socially annihilate him. First breath. The chief's sword suddenly flew from his grasp, plunging straight toward the audience. The second breath, his belt snapped, revealing undergarments embroidered with Molan, the greatest under heaven, switched by his disciple the night before. The third breath, the memory stone's projection unfurled overhead, displaying footage of him leading a group to beat up an innocent child back in the day. Amidst the uproar, his disciple panically dropped to his knees. Senior brother, why ruin your own reputation? This junior admits defeat. The sect leader overturned the tea table on the spot. Drag this deceitful impostor away. Molan is promoted to chief disciple. At the celebratory banquet, various factions competed to recruit disciples. Young friend Mo, would you consider joining our Celestial Secrets Pavilion? We guarantee preferential resources. Come to our Mystic Sound sect. Our holy maiden is just your age. My disciple smiled politely while secretly tugging at my sleeve under the table. Master, they're so noisy. Drunkenly, I slung an arm around his shoulders. Do you know what you look like right now? I poked his chest, like a piece of fatty meat fallen into a pack of wolves, except it's grown venomous fangs. He suddenly grabbed my finger. Then what about Shizuan? The night breeze scattered his feigned gentleness, revealing the familiar obsession beneath. Are you the one who raised wolves, or? Before the words were fully spoken, thunderclouds suddenly churned across the sky, a golden light split the banquet hall, and a majestic roar echoed from the clouds. How dare you plant a heart-devouring GU in the Tao child? I looked up to see the ancestral master of Qingyun's sect descending in divine form while the seal on my disciple's chest shattered. Heart-devouring GU, I stared at the founding ancestor of Qingyun's sect who had descended from the heavens. Then looked down at my disciple where the seal over his heart had shattered. An eerie golden light was now pulsing. This seal had been with him since childhood. She had tried countless methods without making the slightest dent in it, yet now this ancestor had effortlessly dissolved it. What's more crucial, this kind of dark sorcery was something even the most worldly wise cultivators had never seen before, yet he had immediately recognized its name, before I could think it through. The old bastard made an even bigger commotion. Wretched fiend, the ancestral master's divine visage glared furiously. To steal the Tao child's spiritual roots, you actually tortured him with dark arts for 10 years. The entire hall erupted in uproar. Countless sword points instantly aimed at me. Is this old man blind? I was clearly teaching him how to elegantly extort resources from immortal sects. 18 ways to avoid silver needle detection when poisoning. On the importance of memory stones in information warfare. How could this possibly be called torture? This is fucking elite education. Suddenly, the system came online with a piercing shriek. Warning, detected key plot character. Mo Lan, the prodigy of Qingyun's sect times beacon of immortal sects times future leader of righteous path. Mission target error. Me, hair. A decade-old zoetrope from that ruined temple flashed through my mind. Stray dogs, pools of blood. A child's hand clutching broken tiles, and the system's words that were drowned out by thunder. Warning, high-risk target detected, justice value excessively high. You tricked me. I pounded furiously at the system within my consciousness. Why didn't you explain this clearly at the time? The system whimpered in electronic tones. I'm at a critical moment of upgrading and can't spare any more energy for detection. At this moment, Mo Lan was enveloped in golden light, floating mid-air. The ancestral master's voice boomed like thunder. The Tao child's spiritual consciousness has awakened. Why haven't you surrendered yet? I severed the connection with the system and tightened my grip on the sword hilt, only to see my disciple bathed in golden light suddenly turn his head and wink at me. Ancestral master, bear witness. My disciple's voice resounded through the heavens. This junior carries no heart-devouring GU within, before the eyes of countless cultivators. He leisurely parted his robe, revealing my life-bound spirit fire merging with golden radiance at his heart. This is the soul-locking flame my master planted in me 10 years ago. When he raised his eyes, golden light swirled in his gaze, yet what he uttered was our master-disciple code phrase. Lest the unruly apprentice betrays his master. Do you still remember? I shuddered involuntarily. This lie was fucking masterful. Soul-binding flame was indeed my unique secret technique. But back then I'd clearly taught it to him as how to fake being controlled. The system had gone mad. He's helping you cover up the lie. Why is the male lead helping the villain cover up the lie? Hearing the system's breakdown, I couldn't help but feel smug. Of course, it's because I'm such a lovable person. The situation instantly reversed. So it turns out fellow Daoist Mo was suppressing his Tao body's rampage. I've wronged this immortal maiden. Amidst the awkward chorus of apologies, the patriarch's manifested form gave me a profound look before dissipating. Since the chosen one has awakened, you must return to Azure Cloud Sect to succeed as its leader. Hold on, the disciple smiled. Article 321 of the Immortal Sect Code. The sect leader must pass the Seven Peaks trial. He suddenly drew his sword and sliced his palm, letting blood drip to form ancient runes on the ground. Disciple Moran applies for immediate trial. A deathly silence fell over the room, because that law had an additional clause. If the Tao child awakens and completes the 7 Peaks trial, they may ascend to godhood. The system suddenly calmed down. Wait. He couldn't possibly be thinking, this ancestral master is definitely up to no good, and the harm is immense, we must eradicate him root and branch. Good boy. I transmitted secretly through soundless communication. Would you like your master to teach you 108 ways of reasonable elimination? Behind his back, he flashed me a 5 with his fingers. Within 5 breaths, I'll make Qingyun's sect change its surname. As Mo Lan's words fell, the ancestral master's divine manifestation suddenly solidified. You think, the aged voice thundered forth, this old man would truly play by the rules. The heavens and earth suddenly darkened as the solemn golden seal twisted abruptly, transforming into countless blood-red chains that lashed toward Mo Lan, each chain's end dangling a desiccated corpse bearing his likeness. My pupils constricted violently. Those corpses were all past generations of Tao children. For 300 years, you've been the most perfect vessel. The patriarch's true form emerged from the clouds, a monstrous patchwork entity. Pity this demoness has corrupted you. I originally intended to use the heart-devouring GU to completely crush your soul, but your master actually found a way to balance it for you. But none of that matters now. Today, I'll kill every single one of you as a celebration gift for my ascension to godhood. The system suddenly screamed. Ultimate mission updated. Slay the false god. What a fine disciple. He sneered. Did you truly think this venerable one counted on you to revive our immortal sect? The heavens darkened abruptly as the golden, radiant seal transformed into blood-red chains that coiled toward his disciple. You're merely the vessel I cultivated for soul theft. Despite the dire moment, Moran actually smiled. In the first breath, 12 golden talismans flew from his sleeve, the very counterfeits I taught him to use for substitution, yet now they landed perfectly on each desiccated corpse's forehead. At the second breath, those talismans suddenly transformed into viscous black liquid, clearly the bone-corroding poison I had failed to refine last year, yet he had modified it into a demon-dispelling holy medicine. At the third breath, the ancestral master let out a shriek as his stitched-together body began to crumble. Impossible, this is clearly the work of a demonic cultivator. Mo Lan thrust his sword through the man's throat. Our master once said, so-called righteousness is merely the script written by those who win. On the fourth breath, he turned his head and winked at me. Master taught me this. His fingertips ignited spiritual flames identical to mine. Villains die from talking too much time to poison. The patriarch suddenly froze as his divine form began crumbling. The slow-acting poison that had been slipped into his teacup daily for 10 years finally took effect. Mo Lan smiled and tossed out the fireworks he'd been hoarding for a decade, actually a super bomb made from 999 bundled explosion talismans. On the fifth breath, dazzling fire clouds exploded above the entire Qingyun sect, drowning out the ancestors' final screams in thunderous roars. As the smoke cleared, Mo Lan stood atop the ruins, flicking blood from his sword. Years of planning wasted. Master, did I pass the graduation exam? The setting sun bled crimson as the system interface flashed frantically. Detected demise of false deity. Plotline reconstructing. Warning, male lead's morality value, -infinity. But world peace index, plus 100%. It suddenly fell silent, then displayed one final message. In original plotline, Mo Lan was supposed to be possessed by the ancestral master, becoming a puppet immortal sovereign, and now, the scene flashes back. 12-year-old Moran writes on the title page of the Blackheart Sutra. Master says, only those who survive are righteous. At 15, Moran mixes the antidote into poisoned porridge and feeds it to the child apprentices controlled by the patriarch. Last night, he tampered with the blood pact, causing all the devoured remnants of the fallen disciples to turn against their masters. The smoke cleared. The system gasped its last breath. Final mission. Immediately clear the male lead's name. Solutions as follows. Declare all misdeeds were committed under your coercion. Commit suicide to prove his innocence. Convert him with true love. Before I could even complain, my disciple had already cleaved the system panel in half with his sword. Annoying, when he turned to look at me, traces of bloodlust still lingered crimson in his eyes. Would master like to inspect my homework, for example? He suddenly leaned close to my ear. The final rule of the villain's code. Betraying your master is the ultimate graduation test. I grabbed his neck and slammed him onto the ruins. You wretched disciple, you peeked at my treasured novels. 3 days later, at the Immortal Sect gathering, the newly appointed Immortal Alliance leader Molan promulgated the new regulations for the cultivation world. Article 1. Soul possession is strictly prohibited. Violators shall be force-fed poison. 300 recipes attached. Article 2. Memory stones must record complete footage. Those who edit recordings shall have their 9 generations exterminated. Article 3. The 15th of every month is designated as Anti-Fraud Awareness Day, lectured by our Alliance leader's master. Below the stage, I cracked melon seeds and asked, "What does the third clause mean?" He bent down to wipe crumbs from my mouth. "Convenient for you to keep teaching people to be bad." The setting sun stretched our shadows long, just like that big and small pair in the ruined temple many years ago. The system flickered one last time, and before completely shutting down, we saw it modify the final record. Task completion, 100%. Later, 2 versions of the story circulated throughout the 3 realms. Legitimate path version. Daozi Molan endured hardships and feigned compliance with the Demon Lord for 10 years, ultimately eliminating the traitors within Qingyun's sect. Now he leads the immortal sects to uphold justice. Demonic path version. That unscrupulous master-disciple pair turned immortal cultivation into a raising simulator, one daring to teach, the other daring to learn. They're currently forcing Buddhist cultivators to study the beginner's guide to fraud schemes. Note, the most ruthless righteous alliance in history has been born. Extra. About how my master always wants me to redeem myself. Master, what are you looking at again? I put down the code of conduct for righteous cultivators in my hand and guiltily hid it behind my back. Ahum, just browsing casually. Molan, now to be addressed as the alliance leader of the Immortal Alliance, leaned against the doorframe with a faint, enigmatic smile. Today he wore a snow-white robe, with a warm jade pendant at his waist, every inch the radiant and upright leader of the righteous path. If one ignored the poison patterns subtly embroidered on his sleeves and the still damp bloodstains on his boots, * 10 key principles of redemption *, with a flick of his fingers, the book flew into his grasp. Chapter 1. Redemption through love. I tried to salvage. This is the legacy left by the system. What's wrong with studying it? He chuckled softly, the pages turning to ashes in his palm. Master, he leaned down, his shadow looming over me. Have you forgotten who taught me back then? The best way to reform your enemies is to send them to reincarnation. It all started 3 days ago. Before self-destructing, the system left me a final remedy package, claiming that completing the redemption mission could salvage the collapsed storyline. I didn't take it seriously at first until I discovered this damn program could actually freeze my Osmanthus wine. Cease all harmful guidance behaviors toward the host immediately, the mechanical voice coldly declared. Mission 1. Make the male lead publicly recite the Tao Te Ching. Thus unfolded the following scene. At the Immortal Alliance gathering, elders from various sects watched Molan with tearful eyes. The Alliance leader can actually recite the Tao Te Ching backwards, truly a paragon of righteous cultivation. No one knew he was secretly transmitting his words to me. Master, after Chapter 2, when the world knows beauty as beauty, should it be followed by therefore no strategy is more difficult than thorough secrecy. That's a line from the Black Heart Sutra I made up. Mission 2 is even more outrageous. Have the male lead save an innocent commoner. I stared at Molan reviewing official documents, a plan forming in my mind. My obedient disciple, how about accompanying your master down the mountain for a stroll? Half a day later, the roof of the city's most notorious gambling den was torn off. Alliance leader. The rescued gambler knelt weeping. Thank you for eradicating this den of thieves. They forced me to sign a contract of servitude. Molan gently helped him up. It was nothing. Then she immediately shoved the gambling den's deed into my hands. Master, just as you taught, gather evidence first, then strike. The memory stone recorded them cheating 36 times. The system glitched out in rage. What kind of salvation is this? I declared righteously. How isn't it? That person's debts don't need to be repaid anymore. When mission 3 popped up, I nearly crushed the jade slip. Host. Please arrange for the male lead to experience a love that pierces the heart and etches the soul. Molan was practicing swordplay in the courtyard when he heard this. With a flick of his sword tip, he severed the rope of the wine gourd at my waist. Master, who do you wish me to marry? He caught the falling gourd, his eyes darkening. The holy maiden of Shenyin's sect, the direct descendant of Medicine King Valley. Or, I snatched back the gourd and took a fierce swig. Just pick whoever catches your eye, finish the mission and be done with it. He suddenly closed in, trapping me against the pillar with lingering sword energy. So, master, his breath brushed past my ear, who catches your eye the most? I lifted my foot to kick him. You wicked disciple. Is that any way to speak to your master? That night, the system suddenly prompted. Task 3 completed. Me, it murmured faintly, detecting intense emotional fluctuations. Host, your ears have turned red. The final mission arrived without warning. Please have the male lead publicly declare, from this day forward, I shall strictly adhere to righteous principles. It coincided with the Immortal Alliance's centennial celebration, where mighty beings from all 3 realms gathered. As I gnawed on my brush handle drafting Molan's speech, he suddenly snatched the paper away. Master need not trouble yourself. He smoothed my furrowed brow. This disciple has his own plans. On the day of the grand ceremony, 100,000 cultivators gazed up at the white-robed immortal venerable upon the high platform. In my youth, I was fortunate to receive my master's guidance. His voice carried across the land. She once said, the true path lies not in rigid rules, but in a clear conscience. Amidst the solemn silence of the entire hall, I spat out my tea. This was the exact line I'd taught him for how to justify wrongdoing after committing crimes. That night, the system finally crashed and admitted defeat. Thawing complete. One final question. The mechanical voice sounded exhausted. How on earth did you raise the beacon of righteousness to become like this? I gazed out the window. Moran was burying jars of wine in the courtyard, bathed in moonlight like an immortal descended to the mortal realm. If one ignored the corpses of the demonic cultivators who had come to assassinate him lying at his feet, it's quite simple. I chuckled. First, I taught him not to distinguish between good and evil, then I taught him. The words broke off abruptly. Molan stood by the window at some point, blood dripping from his fingertips. Master, why have you stopped speaking? He leaned down, the scent of blood mingling with cold fragrance enveloping me. The third lesson you taught was, if anyone dares to harm Master, exterminate their 9 generations and wipe out their entire clan, before the system completely shut down. I heard one last mutter, this male lead is beyond saving. 8. Extra. Moran's confession. Moran first realized something was wrong with his feelings toward his master when he was 14 years old. That day, he had just finished studying how to frame someone with elegance, to test his skills. His master took him to extort a shady medicine merchant at the foot of the mountain. The plan went smoothly. The medicine merchant took the bait. The evidence captured by the Shadowstone was irrefutable, and they even managed to raid the enemy's hideout in passing, returning with a sack full of spirit stones. But on their way back to the mountain, a sudden downpour struck. Before Molan could even cast a rain-repelling spell, his master yanked him over, roughly covering his head with her sleeve while cursing under her breath. Already forgot the spell I just taught you. If you catch a cold, you'll just waste my medicine. He stared blankly upward, watching rainwater trickle down his master's chin, droplets clinging to his lashes, damp strands of hair plastered to his neck. Though utterly bedraggled, the man still stubbornly shielded the pouch of spirit stones in his arms, muttering, "Don't let the loot get wet." At that moment, Molan's heart raced faster than when he'd stolen from the sect leader's private treasury. So it turned out there really were people in this world who teach him mischief while still fearing he might catch cold. Molan chose the third day after their ancestral master's death to confess his feelings, a decision with sound reasoning. 1. The master was in a good mood, having just blown up his enemies. 2. His own appearance was impeccable, robes whiter than snow, deliberately tied with the hair ribbon gifted by his master. 3. The setting was romantic, the ruins blooming with poisonous flowers, his master's favorite variety. As he knelt on one knee before his master, I was busy tallying the spoils of war without even looking up. Let's divide the spoils later. I need this sword first. Master, Moran suddenly pressed down on my hand. Me, are you hurt? Was the poison not fully cleared? Molan took a deep breath. Disciple has a question. Speak. If I were to deceive my master. His fingertips lightly traced the old bite mark on his teacher's wrist, left when he was 10 years old with a high fever. Would you purge the unworthy disciple? I narrowed my eyes. Depends. Like what? Moran suddenly leaned in close and whispered in her ear. For example, like this. A kiss landed at the corner of my lips, carrying a faint scent of blood and medicinal herbs. My master remained deathly silent for 3 breaths. First breath. Master's sword clattered to the ground. Second breath. She grabbed Molan by the collar. Wretched disciple, who taught you that move? Molan blinked. Article 201 of the Black-Hearted Cultivator's Code. Strike when unprepared. Aim straight for the vitals. Bullshit. I never taught you that. I taught myself. The master smiled and kissed again. For this makeup exam submission, what score would master give? The master stared at me for a long time before suddenly laughing too, grabbing my collar with a backhanded motion. He bit back fiercely. Fail. Too weak. Extra story times end. Easter egg. Later. Unofficial chronicles of the immortal sect recorded. Every morning at dawn, immortal Lord Mo would comb his master's hair and adorn it with hairpins. Yet the ornaments he chose were either horns of venomous dragons or feathers of demonic phoenixes, all because master said they looked fun to wear. And so the first story ends. What do you all think? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed it, please give this video a like. Now, here's the second story. My rattan recliner was placed in the most desolate western courtyard of the royal mansion. The weeds in the courtyard grew waist-high. When Qinghe stumbled in carrying a food box, I was lounging with my feet up, munching on watermelon. Watermelon seeds went fut-fut as they were spat into the grass. Miss, you're still eating. His Highness has returned to the manor. Qinghe stamped her foot anxiously. Tossing the food box onto a nearby stone bench, I couldn't even be bothered to lift my eyelids. So he's back. What's he gonna do? Confiscate my watermelon? No. Word came from the front. You're summoned to the main hall for dinner. Qinghe rushed over to snatch the melon from my hands. Stop eating now. We must hurry to freshen up. Just look at these coarse clothes you're wearing. I nimbly twisted my body away, dodging her hand, and took another big bite. Juice dripped down my chin. Not going, I mumbled indistinctly. Dining with him has more rules than the imperial kitchens. Someone even counts how many vegetable leaves you pick up with your chopsticks. Exhausting. Just say I'm sick and can't get up. Qinghe looked ready to cry. Miss, we've used that excuse 8 times already. Last time you pretended to be ill. The prince brought the imperial physician himself to take your pulse. We nearly got caught. Have you forgotten? I froze mid-motion, recalling that scene. That bastard Xiao Qi stood by my bedside with his handsome face, hands clasped behind his back, watching as the elderly imperial physician trembled while taking my pulse. The physician was drenched in sweat, finally stammering after a long pause. Your Highness, the pulse is steady and strong, though perhaps slightly troubled by melancholy. What expression did Xiao Qi have at that time? Oh, the corner of his mouth seemed to twitch. He stared at the red stain, actually watermelon pulp, that I had theatrically coughed up onto the handkerchief, then leisurely remarked, melancholy. It seems the prince's manners meals don't suit the princess consort's taste. From now on, this prince shall dine with you. From that day onward, my path of feigning illness was completely sealed. TSK. I irritably tossed away the gnawed clean melon rind and wiped my mouth. Annoying. Is he that bored? Why's he staring at me while I eat? Qinghe swiftly wrung out a damp cloth to wipe my face and hands. This servant wouldn't dare guess His Highness's thoughts. Miss, please, hurry and change your clothes. How about this moon-white plain brocade ruchuan? It looks simple yet elegant. I looked at the dress's layers upon layers of gauze and that waistband thin enough to strangle someone, then firmly refused. Bring me that Songjiang cotton lounging outfit. Young mistress, that's far too plain. His Highness will see. Let him look if he wants. Better yet if he doesn't. I cut her off. Hurry up, or I'll just go wearing this outfit. Qinghe closed her eyes in despair, resigned to rummaging through the chest, when I stepped into the brightly lit main hall filled with swirling incense smoke. Xiao Qi was already seated upright in the place of honor. The dark ink-colored casual robe accentuated his jade-like complexion, though his gaze carried a chill, like the surface of a lake in early winter. Below him sat a young woman dressed in goose-yellow skirts, with willow-leaf eyebrows and an oval face, sipping tea delicately, her graceful posture resembling a painting. I knew her. She was Liu Rumei, the legitimate daughter of the Vice Minister of Rites, the renowned talented lady and gentlewoman of the capital. Rumored to be the concubine candidate most favored by the imperial consort, I thought inwardly, oh ho, and understood, an upgraded version of the Hongmen banquet, Your Highness. I walked to the chair farthest from the main seat, didn't bow, and sat down directly, moving as naturally as if returning to my own straw nest in the western courtyard. Liu Rumei's hand holding the teacup paused as she looked at me in surprise, then quickly glanced at Xiao Qi at the head of the table. Xiao Qi's face showed no expression as he spoke indifferently. You're here, sit closer, without shifting my seat. I reached for the teapot on the table. This spot's fine, plenty of space. I poured myself a cup and took a big gulp. Lukewarm, how dull. Liu Rumei finally couldn't hold back and gently reminded in her soft voice, Sister consort, His Highness is present, you haven't paid your respects yet. I set down my teacup and looked at her with sincere earnestness. Miss Liu, isn't it? You see His Highness hasn't said anything, which means he doesn't care about such formalities, isn't that right? Your Highness, Xiao Qi's gaze fell upon me, lingering on my faded Songjiang cotton robe without even subtle embroidery, plain as a maid's cleaning attire. His fingers tapped lightly once on the rosewood tabletop. Without responding to my remark, he simply said, Dine. Maidservants filed in gracefully, carrying exquisite bowls and dishes, crystal shrimp, hibiscus chicken slices, lion's head meatballs with crab roe, steamed perch. The table was laden with dishes, each a feast for the eyes and palate. Liu Rumei ate with such graceful delight, taking dainty bites, chewing slowly, her chopsticks picking up just morsels at a time, occasionally dabbing the corners of her mouth with a handkerchief. My stomach had been growling for ages, under the dual gazes of Xiao Qi and Liu Rumei. I picked up my chopsticks. My target was clear, the braised pork knuckle in soy sauce nearest to me. With one swift motion, I lifted a large, quivering piece of glistening skin clinging to tender meat. Sister Princess Consort, Liu Rumei exclaimed softly, covering her small mouth with a handkerchief as if startled. This seems far too greasy. I turned a deaf ear and firmly placed that substantial chunk of pork knuckle into my own bowl. Then, under Liu Rumei's astonished gaze and Xiao Qi's profound stare, I lifted the bowl, took a big mouthful of white rice, and ate it with the pork knuckle, puffing out my cheeks. So delicious. The dining room was filled only with the sound of my chewing and Liu Rumei's occasional sharp intakes of breath. Xiao Qi didn't pick up his chopsticks, just kept staring at me. His gaze made me slightly uneasy. I swallowed the food in my mouth and picked up another bite of stir-fried seasonal vegetables, trying to salvage some dignity. The princess consort has quite an appetite. He finally spoke, his tone revealing neither joy nor anger. Not bad, I replied vaguely. Picking up another slice of chicken, the prince's chef truly has exceptional skills. That was sincere praise. Aside from all the rules, the food in the prince's residence was beyond reproach. How does it compare to the watermelon you were gnawing on in the western courtyard? He suddenly asked. I nearly choked on my mouthful of rice. Damn that Qinghe. Didn't we agree to keep it secret? Who ratted me out about sneaking watermelon? I stiffened my neck. Watermelon quenches thirst, it's different. Liu Rumei interjected at just the right moment, her voice as soft as a spring breeze. Your Highness, our elder sister the princess consort truly has such a refreshingly candid nature. However, given elder sister's noble status, her diet ought to be more refined to suit her station and benefit her health. This younger sister happens to keep several mild medicinal cuisine recipes at home, perhaps. No need, I cut her off. I prefer hearty food. Medicinal cuisine tastes bitter and bland, no fun at all. With that, I picked up another lion's head meatball. Liu Rumei's expression froze slightly as she cast a pleading glance toward Xiao Qi. Xiao Qi didn't look at her. Instead, he picked up serving chopsticks and placed a piece of braised pork knuckle in sauce into my bowl. His movements were natural and fluid. "Eat more if you like it," he said. Liu Rumei clutched the handkerchief in her hand so tightly it might tear. I looked down at the extra-large piece of pork knuckle, perfectly marbled with fat and lean, that had appeared in my bowl, then glanced up at Xiao Qi's handsome face that remained as expressionless as ever. There was only one thought in my mind: is this guy sick? After that bizarre dinner, Xiao Qi inexplicably started visiting my courtyard more often, and every time he came, it was always when I was at my most improper, like when I was sitting cross-legged on the veranda, cracking melon seeds with Qinghe and competing to see who could spit them the farthest. Dressed in his princely robes with a jade belt and golden crown, he stood in the overgrown courtyard, watching as I spat melon seed shells fut onto the ground 3 paces away. Ahem, he cleared his throat lightly. Qinghe and I startled violently, scattering melon seeds everywhere. "Why, Your Highness?" Qinghe scrambled up in a panic to bow. I slowly lowered my legs and brushed the dust off my skirt. "Does Your Highness need something?" He walked over, his gaze sweeping over the scattered melon seed shells on the ground, then lingering on the seed crumbs at the corner of my mouth, before finally settling on my bare feet. The weather was hot, and I'd found the stockings stifling, so I'd taken them off. "Nothing." His tone was indifferent. "Just passing by. Your courtyard is rather quiet." I let out a dry chuckle. "Indeed, quite desolate." "Your Highness is far too noble, best not dirty your boots." He didn't respond, walking over to my treasured rattan recliner and running his hand over it. "This chair has seen some years." Left by my mother," I answered casually. He fell silent for a moment before suddenly saying, "We're having important guests tomorrow. Come with me to receive them in the front hall." My scalp prickled. "Who?" "Lady Angua, a leading figure among the capital's elite noblewomen. Renowned for her exacting standards, her rules could crush a person to death." "Your Highness," I attempted to protest, "my cold hasn't fully recovered yet, and I fear passing the illness to noble company." Xiao Qi turned to look at me, his gaze indifferent. "A cold? You seemed quite energetic when spitting out melon seed shells." "Fine, you win. Tomorrow at mid-morning, dress properly and wait for me in the main courtyard." With those words, he turned and left, his robe brushing past the wildly growing Farksdales. Qinghe wore an expression as if the sky had fallen. "We're doomed, young miss." The Duchess of Angua, her discerning eyes missed nothing. You. I was utterly despairing too. I'd rather spend the whole day pulling weeds in the west courtyard than deal with that kind of situation. The next day, a quarter hour before Saisha, 9 to 11 a.m. Dressed in a dark purple gold-woven jacket that Qinghe had dug out from the bottom of a chest, my most formal attire, with my hair meticulously styled and weighed down by several heavy gold hairpins, I stood stiffly at the main courtyard entrance like a tightly wrapped puppet. Xiao Qi was already there, dressed in royal python robes with dignified grace. His majestic bearing made even the elaborately adorned Liu Rumei beside him seem like mere ornamentation. Liu Rumei's eyes flickered with a barely perceptible trace of disdain when she saw me, quickly replaced by a gentle smile. "Sister consort looks radiant today, and this attire is most dignified." I tugged at the corner of my mouth, feeling the collar strangling my breath. Xiao Qi's gaze lingered on me for several breaths before he simply said, "Let's go." The Duchess of Angua truly lives up to her reputation. Her silver-white hair was combed sleek and glossy, not a strand out of place, adorned with a jewel-encrusted golden forehead band, sitting upright in the seat of honor. She twirled a string of prayer beads between her fingers, her gaze swept over like hooks, capable of scrutinizing you from the roots of your hair to the soles of your feet. "Curtsy. Take seat." A maid presented fragrant tea. The mistress slowly turned her prayer beads as she began her questioning. It was nothing more than the usual inquiries about music, chess, calligraphy, painting, women's virtues, household management, and domestic affairs. Liu Rumei responded fluently, her voice clear and melodious, quoting classics with graceful poise as if performing. The mistress nodded repeatedly, her eyes revealing satisfaction. "It's my turn now." "What does Her Highness usually do at home to pass the time?" The lady took a sip of tea and asked casually. My mind raced through Chingha's crash course standard answers, reading poetry, practicing needlework, managing household affairs, but my mouth seemed to have a mind of its own as the words tumbled out: raising chickens, pulling weeds, cracking sunflower seeds, basking in the sun. Fut, a maidservant standing nearby, couldn't hold back her laughter. Liu Rumei covered her mouth with a handkerchief, her shoulders trembling slightly. The Duchess of Angua paused her prayer beads mid-count and lifted her eyelids to glare sharply at me. Xiao Qi froze with his teacup suspended near his lips. The air was deathly still. It dawned on me belatedly, damn it, I'd put my foot in my mouth again, gritting my teeth. I tried to salvage the situation. Occasionally, I also read the ****. This was the only book Chingha had ever forced me to memorize the title of. Though I'd only ever looked at its illustrations, the wrinkles on Madame's face seemed to freeze solid. After what felt like ages, she managed to pull an extremely strained smile. The princess consort truly has an unconstrained character. She turned to Xiao Qi again, speaking with the characteristic earnestness of an elder. Your Highness, the princess consort is still young and requires proper guidance. The affairs of the inner household are trivial yet intricate. Concerning the dignity of the princely residence, it would be best to have capable assistants. Her gaze meaningfully drifted toward Liu Rumei. Liu Rumei promptly lowered her head, revealing a slender and fair neck. I studied the speck of dirt left in my fingernails from yesterday's weeding. Pretending not to hear, Xiao Qi set down his teacup, the porcelain clinking crisply against the saucer. His tone was flat and unemotional. My lady speaks rightly. Matters of the inner household are naturally managed by the princess consort. Though her temperament may be somewhat indolent, such genuineness is rare. The manor has its own rules, and this prince finds them quite satisfactory. The Duchess of Angua choked slightly, likely not expecting Xiao Qi to be so bluntly protective of his own. Liu Rumei's lowered lashes trembled violently. My fingers, which had been idly playing with mud, froze as well. I could scarcely believe my ears. Is he speaking up for me? Though it doesn't sound like anything nice either. The atmosphere grew even more awkward. The Duchess of Angua wore an unpleasant expression, forced herself to exchange a few more polite words, then excused herself on account of fatigue and rose to take her leave. After seeing off this formidable guest, I let out a long sigh of relief, feeling sweat dampening my back. Just as I was about to slip back to my humble quarters, Xiao Qi's voice sounded behind me. The princess consort shall remain. Liu Rumei paused mid-step, casting a resentful glance at Xiao Qi before finally allowing her maid to lead her away. Only Xiao Qi and I remained in the main hall. He approached me, his towering figure radiating an oppressive presence. I kept my head lowered, staring fixedly at the exquisite wave-and mountain embroidery on the hem of his python robe. My heart pounding like a drum. This is it, the reckoning has come. Today, you did well. His voice came from above me. I looked up in astonishment. He looked down at me, those deep eyes seemingly holding a faint trace of amusement. Lady Angua is my mother's childhood friend, he said evenly. She came today to assess Liu Rumei on my mother's behalf. So that's how it was. I knew it. Today, he paused, as if carefully choosing his words. You made her understand that being the mistress of the royal manor isn't so easy. Saved us quite a bit of trouble. I blinked, somewhat bewildered. So I messed up, but accidentally did him a favor. However, he changed the subject abruptly, his gaze falling on my nervously intertwined fingers. Your nails need trimming. I instinctively hid my hands behind my back. The hint of amusement in his eyes seemed to deepen. You'll encounter many such occasions in the future. Just be yourself, no need to deliberately imitate others. He turned and left, leaving me alone in the vast, opulent hall, unable to collect my thoughts for quite some time. Be myself, the me who was pulling weeds and nibbling melon seeds in the west courtyard. This prince is seriously ill. Days slipped by amidst Xiao Qi's occasional passing by and Liu Rumei's increasingly resentful glances. I continued to lounge idly in the west courtyard. Only now there was a small side table next to the recliner, always stocked with seasonal fruits and pastries, reportedly specially prepared by the prince's order for the kitchen. Qinghe went from being utterly terrified at first to numb acceptance later, even daring to mutter softly while I gnawed on chilled melon, "His Highness seems truly different toward you." I spat out the melon seeds. How is it different? Before, he found me embarrassing, now he's using me to ward off trouble, at its core. I'm still just a tool, Qinghe. That afternoon, I was lying on a chair with a round fan covering my face, dozing off. Hurried footsteps sounded at the courtyard gate. Qinghe rushed in breathlessly, her face pale. "Miss, trouble, the imperial concubine. The imperial concubine has returned to the mansion. She's already at the second gate. All womenfolk are ordered to go to Sea Iron Hall immediately." My round silk fan clattered to the ground. The real test had come, imperial consort Tai. Xiao Qi's birth mother, the late emperor's most beloved noble consort, and now the current Empress Dowager's younger sister. She was the woman standing at the very pinnacle of the great Xia dynasty's social hierarchy. Rules and propriety were things carved into her very bones. The reason Her Majesty took notice of me was simple. Liu Rumei had gone weeping to the palace to lodge a complaint. The atmosphere in Sea Iron Hall was so tense it could freeze over. The grand imperial concubine sat upright on a rosewood armchair cushioned with brocade, her well-maintained face revealing neither joy nor anger, only the fine lines at the corners of her eyes hinting at sharpness. She slowly twirled a string of premium agarwood prayer beads in her hand, her unhurried movements exuding invisible pressure. Liu Rumei stood beside her, eyes red like a wronged little white rabbit, dabbing gently at the corners of her eyes with a silk handkerchief. Xiao Qi sat below them, his expression calm and unreadable. I knelt properly on the icy golden brick floor of the hall, not daring to lift my head. "Raise your head." The grand consort's voice wasn't loud, but carried undeniable authority. I took a deep breath and raised my head. Her gaze swept over me from head to toe like a searchlight, finally settling on my slightly sweaty nose tip, betraying my nervousness. "Chia." She didn't look at me, addressing Xiao Qi directly. "Is this the principal consort you begged to marry?" Her tone was thick with bewilderment and disappointment. Xiao Qi stood up and replied respectfully, "Imperial Mother, Su Wan, has an innocent and straightforward nature, innocent and straightforward." The imperial consort seemed to have heard some joke, her prayer beads moving faster between her fingers. To this consort's eyes, she's simply ignorant of her proper station. As a princess consort, she lacks the slightest decorum. I've heard you let her wear coarse cloth, go barefoot, and pull weeds while cracking melon seeds in the courtyard. What kind of behavior is this? You've utterly disgraced the imperial dignity. Liu Rumei chose that moment to let out a delicate sob. The dowager consort grew even angrier. "And what about Rumel, such a good child, gentle, understanding of propriety, managing your household affairs for you with perfect thoroughness? And how do you repay her, allowing your principal consort to humiliate her, making this noble young lady weep her days away?" Xiao Qi remained silent for a moment before replying. "Household affairs follow their own rules. Miss Liu is a guest. Her assistance is kindness, not obligation. The princess consort knows her boundaries." Boundaries. The dowager consort suddenly slammed her hand on the side table, making the teacup lid rattle violently. Her boundaries drove Duchess Angua into such a rage she took to her bed with a migraine. "Her boundaries have made our entire princely household the laughingstock of the capital." I knelt on the floor, my knees aching fiercely, yet a stubborn resentment simmered in my chest. What did I do wrong? Isn't it just that I refused to put on airs? Eating a bit more, dressing casually. Who did I offend? Mother consort, please calm your anger. Xiao Qi's voice remained steady. The princess consort has just entered the manor and is still learning many rules. The matter with Lady Angua was my oversight. It has nothing to do with her. You're still defending her. The dowager consort's chest heaved with rage. I think she's bewitched you. What does she have besides that pretty face? Those words pricked me like a thorn. I abruptly raised my head and looked at the imperial consort. Your Highness, I began, my voice trembling slightly from nervousness but still clear. You are mistaken. The hall fell silent. Everyone turned to look at me. The imperial consort narrowed her eyes. Oh, where exactly have I erred? My face, I pointed at my nose, is actually quite average. There are plenty of people in the capital better looking than me. The imperial consort A barely perceptible twitch seemed to flicker at the corner of Xiao Qi's lips. His Highness married me. I went all out since things had come to this. Because my ancestral grave emitted auspicious smoke, no. Because my father took an arrow for the late emperor on the battlefield back then. Only when he was dying did he remember there was still an unmarried daughter at home, so he begged for an imperial decree from the late emperor to shove me into the royal residence. I've never spoken these words to anyone before, not even Qinghe. It was my worthless father who, on his deathbed, sent someone to deliver a letter, gleefully boasting about the boundless fortune he'd traded his life to secure for me, urging me to cherish this blessing. The Hall of Compassion was so silent you could hear a pin drop. Even Liu Rumei forgot to sob, staring at me in shock. The dowager consort's fingers, which had been turning her prayer beads, came to a complete halt as she fixed me with a sharp gaze. For the first time in my presence, Xiao Qi's brows furrowed slightly. So, I straightened my back, feeling the pain in my knees lessen somewhat. Your Highness married me to obey the imperial decree, to repay a debt of gratitude, not because you fancied me. As for myself, I know my own worth and dare not hope for anything more. I just want to quietly occupy some corner of the manor, cause no trouble, offend no one, have food to eat and clothes to wear, and live out my days in peace. I've never thought to compete with Miss Liu for anything, much less bring shame upon your Highness or this household. Having said my piece in one breath, I felt as though much of the stagnant air that had been pent up in my chest for so long had finally been expelled. I know I'm coarse and ignorant of propriety, unfit for decent company. If my presence truly offends you, I beg you to speak with His Highness, grant me a letter of divorce or send me to any remote temple or estate. I swear I'll behave with utmost propriety and never cause trouble. This way, you won't be vexed by the sight of me, and Miss Liu won't suffer indignities. Having spoken, I kowtowed heavily, pressing my forehead against the icy golden floor tiles. I implore your ladyship's mercy. Dead silence, an interminable silence followed. Only the sandalwood prayer beads in the noble consort's hands made an extremely faint rustling sound. After what seemed like an eternity, they finally heard the noble consort exhale a long, heavy sigh. Within that sigh, there seemed to be resignation, weariness, and perhaps a barely perceptible hint of softening. Chia, the noble consort's voice sounded weary. Is this the consort you've chosen? Xiao Qi walked over to me and crouched down. His warm fingers gently lifted my chin. Forcing me to raise my head, I fell into his bottomless eyes, where emotions too complex for me to understand swirled. Mother, he said without looking at me, his voice clear and firm as he addressed the dowager consort. She is your son's princess consort. She was in the past, she is now, and she will remain so. The princely residence is her home, she need not go anywhere else. His fingers were gentle yet carried an undeniable insistence. As for rules and propriety. He paused, his gaze finally returning to my face with a focus I'd never seen before. This son believes the manor's regulations should be reformed. The dowager consort looked at him, then at me, before finally waving her hand wearily. Enough, this old one can no longer manage your affairs. Rumei, accompany me back to the palace for a few days' stay. Liu Rumei's face turned deathly pale, her lips trembling several times before she ultimately dared not speak another word. With tears brimming in her eyes, she followed the dowager consort's attendants, turning back every few steps. In the Hall of Benevolent Peace, only Xiao Qi and I remained. He still crouched before me, cupping my chin in his hand. Thinking of leaving, he asked in a low voice. I gazed at his handsome face so close to mine, my heartbeat growing erratic. It's you all who think I should leave. No one asked you to leave. His thumb gently brushed away a speck of dust from when I'd knocked my head earlier. And don't ever say such things again. Why? The words slipped out before I could stop them. You don't even like me, why keep me around? As a watchdog, he paused mid-motion. Those deep-set eyes resembled dark pools with undercurrents swirling beneath. Who told you? He spoke slowly, each word striking deep into my heart, that I don't like you. The imperial consort has returned to the palace. Liu Rumei left as well, rumored to have been arranged another good marriage by the consort. The skies above the prince's mansion seemed to have cleared up considerably all at once. At least my western courtyard annex had completely become my independent kingdom. Xiao Qi started passing by more frequently. Sometimes it would be midday, when he'd bring a stack of account books to occupy my only small stone table, claiming it was easier to think clearly while reviewing accounts in the sunshine. Left with no choice, I'd hug my melon and squat beside the recliner to munch on it. He would occasionally look up, glance at me, and inexplicably curl the corner of his mouth. Sometimes in the evening, after finishing official business, he would stroll over without saying a word, just sitting under the eaves watching me direct Qinghe planting vegetable seedlings in the small plot we'd cleared. "Your spacing between seedlings is wrong," he suddenly remarked, holding my small shovel. I retorted irritably, "Does His Highness know anything about farming?" "I know a thing or two." He walked over, took the shovel from my hands, rolled up his sleeves slightly, revealing his well-defined forearms. Squatting down, he expertly adjusted the spacing for me, covered the soil, and tamped it down. The golden glow of the setting sun fell on his focused profile, softening his sharp features. I stared, slightly dazed. "You actually know how to do this?" He stood up, dusting the dirt off his hands, and said casually, "In my early years, I followed the army and was stationed at the border for a few years. The land there was barren. Military farming wasn't easy, we had to do everything ourselves." I looked at his dirt-stained fingers, then at his handsome, aristocratic face, feeling somewhat conflicted. A prince, stationed at the border, farming. So, he handed the shovel back to me. "Don't always think about running away. The outside world might not be as comfortable as here." My heart seemed to be scalded by the lingering glow of the sunset. Days appeared unchanged, yet somehow everything felt different. I still enjoyed lying on my rattan chair munching melons, only now, beside the small side table laden with fruits and snacks, there occasionally appeared a volume of storybooks or some delicate trinkets, reportedly casually brought by Xiao Qi. I was still wearing my Songjiang cotton robe, strolling barefoot in the courtyard. Only now, Xiao Qi wouldn't frown when he saw me. Sometimes he'd even remind me, "The stones are cold, put on your clogs." Qinghe had progressed from initial shock to sheer delight, chattering endlessly in my ear. "Miss, the prince cares for you. He absolutely does. Look, these freshly delivered chilled bayberries, so plump, and this mermaid silk round fan, so cooling." Munching on bayberries, I mumbled, "Just eat yours, chatterbox." My heart felt like that bayberry juice, sweet yet sour, carrying an indescribable flavor. When autumn's chill arrived, an imperial decree came from the palace. The Empress Dowager would host a chrysanthemum viewing banquet in the royal gardens, inviting noble women from the imperial clan. My name was conspicuously listed. As I gazed at that gilded invitation, it felt heavier than the imperial marriage decree I'd received years ago. "Can I not go?" I looked pitifully at Xiao Qi. He was helping me peel pomegranates, dropping gem-like ruby seeds into a small white jade bowl. Hearing my plea, he looked up, scared. "Yes," I nodded vigorously. "Too many rules, too many fake people, and the food portions are never enough." He chuckled and pushed the bowl of peeled pomegranates toward me. "This time I'll go with you, huh?" The imperial decree also mentioned my name. He wiped his hands leisurely. "Don't worry. Just follow me," that's what he said. But when the day actually came and I stepped into the imperial garden, bursting with flowers and jingling with ornaments, my palms were sweating from nervousness. Xiao Qi walked half a step ahead of me, dressed in his princely robes, his demeanor composed and steady, effortlessly shielding me from most of the curious or probing gazes. He murmured, "Look ahead. That green one is called Emerald Ripples of Autumn, quite rare." I followed his pointing finger and indeed saw a pot of chrysanthemums with petals slender as silk and a jade-green hue, standing out with exceptional elegance amidst a sea of golden and purple blooms. "Oh, quite lovely," I honestly remarked. "You like it?" He tilted his head to look at me. "It's all right." He stopped speaking and led me forward. Whispers surrounded us continuously. "Is that the Princess of Qi? She looks rather plain." "Hush, keep your voice down." I heard she even angered the dowager consort into returning to the palace. Why is His Highness still protecting her? Miss Liu is such a kind person. Who knows, perhaps, his tastes are peculiar. The voices weren't too loud nor too soft, just enough to drift into one's ears. I instinctively wanted to lower my head, but Xiao Qi subtly reached out and gently supported my elbow. "Look over there," he said in a flat tone, as if oblivious to the murmurs around them. "That pot of black chrysanthemum, they say the gardener spent 10 years cultivating it." I followed his gaze to see a pot of chrysanthemums with petals so dark and velvety they shimmered mysteriously in the sunlight. "So black," I marveled. Xiao Qi seemed to chuckle softly. "Yes, purely black." With him by my side, those whispers and stares didn't seem so unbearable anymore. Gradually relaxing, I followed him, genuinely examining each potted plant one by one. Listening to his quiet explanations of those difficult-to-pronounce names and their origins,